What would you do if, as a single lady, you're looking to rent an apartment and the landlord of your place of interest says to you that he cannot give you the apartment because you need to be living in your husband's house and not living alone? That's it. That's the reason. Funny as it sounds, it happens, and today we'll definitely be discussing the mindset and the thought process behind associating the success of a woman to marriage and making it as though a woman's life revolves around her husband. I know we're talking about the housing sector, but that is like the causative factor. Why are single women not considered successful until they're married or living with their husbands? Why can they not rent houses as single people? Why do they have to pretend? Some people literally go the extra mile of going with someone and pretending like the person is their fiance or their husband. Why can't single women rent an apartment? It's ludicrous, for real. And of course, we're still on our creativity series. So when we talk about gender bias in the housing sector, we're definitely going to go into our creativity series and we'll take a look at creativity through another lens entirely. Enough said, stay with us because the next 60 minutes promises to be one of bliss. This is Fafano Africa. I'm Blessings Mosugu. And of course, I am your host on the show. All right, thanks for staying with us. This is Fafano Africa. Now, before I say anything, please take a look at this.
You are getting tenant into your house. You need to do a thorough research because people have different characters. But when they are coming to you, they will not let you know whom they are. They're getting to your house. You will find it difficult to control them. The people I don't even like taking as my tenant. Not that they offend me, no. We call them single mother. There's a single mother, that's a single lady. Single mother is somebody who has married to somebody and have kids, then decided to leave that person and stay alone. So that is exactly what I'm talking about. Staying alone without husband. When you get home, when you park into my house, then it is not be easy for me to control her because they did not respect much. That is the reason why they left the other husband's house.
I want you to tell me, if I came to you as a single woman, why wouldn't you give me an apartment?
As an African, I don't think it's a right to a woman to look for apartment.
So where am I supposed to live? Under the bridge?
You live under your husband.
But I don't have a husband, so what am I supposed to do?
You have to look for one as an African.
These are the statements that make women stay in very abusive marriages that lead to their death.
Let me tell you, if you are married to somebody, huh?
Yes.
That day you sighted your eye on that person that you are going to marry him, you have to be submissive to the call.
Even when he's trying to kill you?
Endure.
Even when he's trying to kill you?
You have chosen. That is Africa for you. You have chosen.
Like I said, this is ludicrous. Now, it's time to address this outdated and shallow mindset that so many African men and women in Africa hold so dear. The general belief for a lot of them is that a woman's success is measured by her marital status. And that's why you see a lot of times, no matter what feat a woman achieves, she's still not successful until she's living under her husband, just like the man said. Now, this belief is what makes some landlords refuse to rent houses to single ladies because they believe that they should be in their husband's houses instead. Yes, there are also religious barriers, which is quite understandable. You see, like a Muslim person refuses to rent a house to a Christian person. That's not even the bone of contention today. And of course, there are also sentiments against men as well. But this is what we're discussing today. Gender bias, especially in the housing sector, is bad enough that we have women, especially. I'm not saying it doesn't happen with men, but we have women fighting, for their rights in economic spaces and political spaces, and that's the most rampant. It's bad enough that we have all of this now having to deal with the housing sector as well. But anyways, we're going to go straight to the conversation, and we will be joined very shortly by the lady in the interview, Olive Emodi. She is a lawyer. She's also a TV anchor at News Central Television, one of our own, and she's the founder of Olive's Single Network. She will join us very shortly. But in the meantime, we also have with us Ademola Ekundayo, a legal practitioner and notary public managing partner, Hill City Associates. Thank you so much, Mr. Ekundayo, for joining us. Thank you. It's a pleasure. Now, we also have joining us Curtis Adigba, a landlord in New Jersey, USA. Thank you, Curtis, for joining us as well.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So for this conversation, we try to create a balance. We have the person who was in the interview, a single lady. She's also a lawyer, but on this show, she's going to be the single lady who was, conducting the interview. We also have a landlord, like you saw, and of course, we have a legal practitioner as well. We want to get to the bottom of this. We want to understand what makes people think the way they do. And I'm going to start with you, Curtis Adigba. You are a landlord, and I'm sure that you saw that clip. I want to get your opinion on what he said in that clip. What do you make of it?
Well, let me say that I was deeply saddened by what he said, and this is one of the ugly mindsets in Africa that plays into the typical stereotypes that you have in our country. You know, when people tend to think that the only way someone can be successful is if he or she is married. That is Nigerian. Look, marriage doesn't really give you, why? I agree that marriage is desirable, but marriage, of course, does not determine whether a lady is successful or not. Marriage is supposed to basically give her a base. Just like the man too, complete one another. So it doesn't mean that if a woman is not married, she's not complete, and that she can only be complete or successful if she's married. So I think I need to make that point clearly, because I also have daughters. Now, having said that, I think this whole mindset about not renting your property to single mothers or single ladies is not a wholesome kind of activity. It doesn't apply to all kind of landlords. The fact is that you have different kind of tenants. You have single ladies who are wonderful tenants. You have single mothers who are spectacular tenants. And you have married women who are terrible tenants. We also have men who are single, who are describe them as wicked tenants. And then you have married men who are also horrible tenants, and you have great people. So, it's not about your marital status, it's about your character and your values.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I'm going to go to Ademola now, who's a legal practitioner, and I want to get your own legal perspective regarding that clip that you just saw. Before we get deeper into the conversation, what do you think of it?
Thank you very much. There's nothing legal about what the man said. It's mere cultural and maybe moral issue that they're trying to raise. I think there's this belief in those days that a woman who's single will bring a lot of people to the house, and they might be promiscuous, there might be issue of morality. That's just it. It's totally illegal. There's no need for that discrimination. Then I think that the man, and at this age, we should understand that things have changed. Like my colleague just said, tenants depends on individual. It's not matter whether you're single, or you're a man, or you're a woman. I happen to be managing some properties, and I realize some of the single ladies here are so fantastic as a tenant, while some married couple are even giving me serious headache. They may not be able to pay their rent on time. They're the one that will give you trouble. Meanwhile, the single ladies, once you give them any notice or tell them anything, they will pay. So I think it's that particular reasoning and thinking is quite archaic, and we need to dispense with it.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Ademola Ekundayo, for that. We have joining us now, the lady who was in that interview, and she's one of our very own, Olive Emodi. Now, she is a lawyer, but for the purpose of this conversation, she's going to be the person in the interview, and she's the single lady in the interview. She's our very own TV anchor, and of course, she's the founder of Olive's Singles Network, which we'll get to in no time. Olive, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Blessings, for having me. Feels good to be on this side of the debate.
I know, right? It's a bit awkward, but it feels good to have you join us on the show. And we did see the clip before you joined us. And I mean, my other guest, the gentleman here, did just talk about it from their own perspectives. And in my introduction, I talked about how laughable it is that somebody somewhere is still thinking like that in this, you know, in the 21st century. And now, Olive, you had to sit through that interview, which I would consider torture. What were your feelings when you know, listening to him say things like that?
Thank you very much, Blessings, for having me on your show. So the feelings that I had hearing him say all that, first it was shock, and then there was anger, and then I felt very belittled. And then at some point, he went back to anger again. So it was just a mix of different emotions. And I didn't know how to process the emotion in time. Of course, I'm a professional. All the time I get to interview people who I don't agree with their standpoint. So I had to try professional, even though deep down in me it was boiling. I was so angry and so sad because all that he was saying was very personal to me. Of course, a single woman. And this is that I've been thinking about since 2022. And it's something that, as a matter of fact, we experienced, I experienced as a child growing up when my father died. And they wouldn't give my mom a house because my mom is a widow. So it was very personal to me. I was very upset. Now, given the benefit of hindsight, because it's a package, given the benefit of hindsight, what I feel, there's so much work that needs to be done. I see that there's a lot of, on the one hand, I think that there's a great level of ignorance. On the other hand, it's a reflection of stereotypical culture, what some people still hold on to. And it's not just the older generation. It will shock you to see that even the younger generations that. And ever since in my DMs, people sending me messages, some people that are calling this man out in the comment section, there are people who are calling them out in my DMs. So it's something that reveals subconsciously the way that a number of people perceive women first, and then single women perceive them as less than, and how marriage has become the yardstick determining your worth as a woman. And like I mentioned in my video, that this is in no way to speak against the institution of marriage, as I totally honor it and I do look forward to it someday, but that should not be the yardstick.
Well, I mean, it truly is sad. But anyways, let me come back to Curtis to find out. I mean, truly no amount of education and enlightenment can wipe off culture from Africa, which is a good thing. But it seems as though that also has its own downsides because people are kind of stuck on such beliefs. How do we, I mean, I know that there's only so much we can do to sensitize people. Those people who strongly believe in things like this can hardly be swayed. But how do we sensitize people to understand better, to know that, a woman's life does not revolve around sitting in her house or, according to the man in the interview, living under her husband and just having children?
I think you must understand that culture is dynamic and there is no culture that is cast in stones. What is important here is that the world is changing, and changing very, very fast. And the earlier some people begin to do a tweaking of their mindset. But look, let's tell ourselves the truth here. This is not something that is popular with a lot of landlords, though. You tend to find this kind of mindset with low-level landlords. I mean, if you have a property, say for instance, in Ikoyi, Victoria Island, Ikeja GRA, I mean, you will not tell your agent and say, look, I don't want a single lady or a single mother to take over my property, to rent my property. I've never seen that. We are talking about properties that are going for millions of naira, okay? So this whole thing is about small apartments, and but of course, again, you must also take into consideration the fact that majority of people who do not have their own properties are low income rent seekers. So, and that's why it's popular. But let me say something here. You see, this whole idea about tying one's capacity to marriage is something that we need to first of all uproot. And I say this, I have this conversation with my daughters all the time. Why it is desirable for you to marry, it does not determine whether you are successful or you are a failure. Okay? And I say to them, you are just fine the way you are. If you find a man that is compatible, a man that you think will enhance your values and lift you up and make you a better human being, go for him. If you don't find anyone, just be yourself. Not marrying does not make you a failure, okay? It is desirable, but it is not what defines you. And let me tell you some practical experience that I've had with tenants. Now, I used to have a single mother as a tenant, and I hope she's watching or listening. Her rent was due 1st of April of every year. One day she called me and said, look, my financials don't work with 1st of April, but I think that by 30th of April of every year, I can pay you your rent. And we agreed. And I can tell you here that not later than the 30th of every April, she paid me her rent. Sometimes 26, 27, I'll receive a lot. Okay? Now, I also had a married young man, and I'm not going to call his name, very successful. I mean, if you see most of our local movies, he's been listed there as someone who has played one role or the other. And he was staying in my house somewhere around the Yaba. And for 3 years, he didn't pay his rent. And I wrote him a letter saying, okay, you can leave and live with the rent so long as you give me possession by this day. And when he was leaving, what did he do? He removed the WC in the house. He removed the water tank overhead. He removed the water pump. He basically stripped the house. So this whole idea that only single ladies default in paying rent is just a mirage.
All right.
First and foremost, what is the whole idea about not having a single lady? Like my colleague just said, oh, you probably bring a man. Who is he bringing to the house? A man, of course. A single man or a married man. A single mother. Who made her a single mother? Another man, precisely. So what is all this? So I think this is an ugly mindset that we have to uproot. And it starts by speaking directly to these issues.
Okay. All right, Mr. Adigwa, thank you for that. Let me come back to Olive so she can react to what you just said. Olive, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much, Blessings, for that. And thank you very much, sir, for highlighting these very important points to your daughters. I agree with you on that completely. But I think the only part that I would disagree with you on is regarding the fact that those who experience the stigmatization when it comes to single ladies that is restricted to maybe low budget or low income houses. I don't agree with that, because I looked for houses on the island and I experienced the same thing on the island. And I also realized that it was the same thing that a number of women who have shared their experiences with me talked about. A number of women who live on the island, who were looking for houses on the island. I've lived on the island for over 10 years, the number of this scenario. So I completely agree with you that that might not be your reality, but it happens. It happens not just amongst the uneducated, but it also happens amongst the very educated. You'll be surprised to see how people's minds think and how, some still genuinely believe. I mean, I spoke to an agent and I asked, why don't you allow single ladies into your property? And the agent said to me that, the landlords are usually afraid that these women bring in different men, that they are promiscuous sometimes. So, the problem is they can bring boyfriends and it will fight in the compound, which makes sense to me. And I said, would you have the same problem if it was a single man? Because men also have different women. How is that not a problem? Why do you feel the need to police a woman's morality? Whilst I understand and I strongly believe, I'm a Christian and I do not endorse certain lifestyles. However, everyone is an adult and it's not a place to access to a cause you do not approve of their lifestyle is the case. But that being said, not every woman, there are women who have jobs, who have these jobs, 9 to 5, entrepreneurs who can afford this rent, and yet they're still experiencing it. If you look at the comment on the island. So yeah, I think that's just the point I wanted to differ on.
All right. Thank you so much, Olive, for that. Now, I do know that you are a lawyer as well, but I'm just going to ask Barrister Ekundayo, because he's the one standing in as a lawyer here. We're seeing you as the single lady in this scenario. So, Barrister Ekundayo, talking about, looking at this issue now at hand, it makes me wonder, what if a woman came to rent a house, for example, with her husband, and 2 months down the line, they had a divorce, or the husband just ups and leaves, and she becomes a single mother or a single woman without children? Does it now mean that the landlord can? So I think what I'm basically trying to say is, are there no housing laws that prohibits? I know that there is a certain kind of autonomy, especially it's his house, it's the landlord, but are there no certain laws, housing laws, that prohibits landlords from having that much autonomy, deciding what to do with single women, on events like that?
Thank you very much. The landlord has the right to eject a tenant based on the fact that she's a single mother or she's a single lady. No, you cannot eject on that ground. That's not acceptable in law. So I don't see any problem in that. If it's already your tenant, a sitting tenant, you can't. So that cannot be a basis for you for ejection. They would rather give another reason. Although they won't give that reason, they would rather give another reason. Maybe they want to use their property, but still you will finish the term of your tenancy. Okay. So legally, there is nothing they can do about that.
All right.
It's at the point of taking you in as a tenant that we usually have this problem. And I think it's issue of orientation. We need for serious reorientation of our people, not just landlords, of the people generally. You will be surprised that it's the landlord wife that will be psyching up the landlord, say, please don't take this person.
Right. Okay. Mr. Adigwa, let me try and ask you this before I come to Olive. Do you think that this has anything to do with women's nonchalance towards doing things for themselves in this generation, especially in this 21st century? Because at the end of the day, it's looking like efforts in futility. Some women, it takes passion, to try and fight for your rights, make a living for yourself, and then somebody somewhere is telling you can't rent a house because you're single. So it goes to say that a lot of, like we said earlier, a lot of, the lives of women kind of have this certain expectation or expected trajectory that, you go to school, you don't have to work too much, you just get married and then you live happily ever after. So does that have anything to do with why there's still women who do not exactly believe in working hard and making something meaningful out of their lives?
I think, look, we say that this is a myth, right? And if you look at the current trend all over the world, I think women are taking over the world. Again, like I said, I keep having a lot of conversation with my daughters because I think I need to prepare them for their own world. And the truth is, one of the things I said to my elders yesterday is, now have you realized that men are becoming the gold diggers? And she said to me, how? I said, well, you see, right now, young boys are looking for successful women to just marry and just live off them. And he said, does that really happen? I said, yes, look around you. Now, having said that, I think nothing stops a woman from attaining her God-given potentials if she works very hard. What about a woman building houses for men to rent? Do they discriminate against single men? So The problem here, I think, is the level of understanding. In fact, there is no data that suggests that women or single ladies or single mothers default more in paying their rent. What is this whole issue? When I saw that video, what is this issue about the man saying you cannot control single mothers? The whole idea about renting your property is not about control. That relationship is a contractual relationship, okay, that is governed by specific terms of agreement. Now, if she is paying her rent and observing all the other terms, where does control come in? Why are you even interested in her personal life?
Why do you want to control her life?
Yeah, she's rented the place from you. She has the right to bring her visitors, whatever they do in the house, so long as it does not constitute a nuisance and does not amount to violation of the terms of the contract. You cannot dictate to her how she will live her life. So
all right.
I think this has to do with education, all right? This has to do with enlightenment.
Okay.
But I need to address what my colleague said. I think
all right, very quickly, please.
Sometimes it is the agents in charge of these properties that make these rules. And then they cover up by saying, oh, my landlord told me. Now, I had an experience whereby a young woman came to me and I got a call from the United States saying, I'm her husband. I want to rent a place for her. She took the place. The man paid the first rent. At least the transfer came from him. Subsequently, he stopped paying. And she went ahead and kept paying and never defaulted one day. I later found out that the man was not her husband. And that didn't change the situation for me. So this whole idea is a myth. Yes, it does exist, but it is not right. And we have to look at it critically and deal with it.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Adiba, for that. Very quickly, in case, for those who don't know, Olive Emodi actually has a singles network, and it's an annual meeting, I guess, if I'm not wrong. Olive, would you say that it is situations like this that inspired Olive's single network? Olive, could you unmute your device, please?
I'm sorry, I'm used to being the one on the other end of the divide, not the person here. All right, so in all honesty, it didn't start out this way. It started with other situations and other ideas I had to make life better for single women, because I'm a single woman myself, and I started to see that a number of my friends kept getting married and my circle of single friends started reducing, and I realized how, a lot of single women, there was a certain loneliness that they were feeling and just the need to build community. Loneliness is one of the leading causes of depression. And in the course of building this community, I then started to see a number of the challenges that single women face. There's the discrimination with houses. The part I haven't even spoken about is how certain women are not allowed into restaurants unless they walk in with a man. I have experienced it. Well, it wasn't done to me. It happened in my presence. And this is not hearsay evidence. A number of women have experienced it. So there's so many other challenges. And what we decided to do was to create a community for single women, that is unmarried women, divorced women, and widows. My mother is a widow. And growing up wasn't the easiest of times. So a number of the things that I do remembering our journey and where we're coming from. And just being able to create opportunities for single women, equip single women to live the best quality of life that they have, pending when they get married, if they want to get married, because not everybody wants to get married, but that's a conversation for another day.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. And well, very quickly, we're going to take some tweets and we'll continue conversation very shortly. So let's take a look at what people are saying on social media. Now, Ayobankole Akintunjoye says, we can condemn unfair treatment from landlords without denying hard truths. Okay. Can I have that back? Okay. It says, landlords don't just turn down singles for nothing. Okay. Lagos is full of flats that started with one single girl and then fiam. 40 girls in one bedroom doing olusho. Okay. Same way loud Yao boys bombard flats. Okay. We're going to have that conversation. Put a pin on that. If you also own a property, you would want to take precautions, except, of course, you're also a reckless landlord and don't care. I've had single neighbors turn a decent apartment to a Bronx neighborhood with everyday weed and girls and fighting in a 2.5 million rental house with families and kids. Next. Stargirl says, not only in Nigeria, here in Cotonou, Benin Republic, no landlord wanted to give his or her house out to Nigerians. Okay, so, okay. Because of this behaviors this writer mentioned. I'm guessing she's referring to the one I read previously. Now, even says landlords should start building houses for singles separately from those with couples with kids. Okay, Mr. Ahmed says, it's so crazy that landlords won't rent houses out to single people. Is it that they expect only married couples to rent houses and singles stay with their parents? It's just so crazy and annoying. I guess I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to come to you, Barrister Ikundayo. The first 3 tweets that I read, obviously, was in support of landlords not renting their houses to single people. And one person even said, you know, you rent a house to a single lady, and before you know, girls are flocking there doing a show. But he's not talking about the fact that married men have houses, and when the wives are not around, girls also flock the houses. And then he's not also talking about married men who leave the houses and then the women entertain people as well. Or he's not talking about married men and women who come in and then every night is basbos, blow and slap and everything. So you see the bias that we're talking about. Very convenient to have double standards. You're talking about young girls becoming oloshos. You're talking about young boys going into Yahoo. But nobody's talking about very noisy families. You know, people who beat each other to stupor every day. So what is your take on that?
I think it's still boiled down to this issue of orientation, really. The discrimination started a long time ago when we were growing up. They believe a single mother or a single lady is not supposed to live alone. There's that attitude. And I think we need to really change the orientation. It's not unlike before at 22, 23, lady is married already. 25, a guy is married. Now you have to wait, you have to plan your life, you have to plan your career. So I think that orientation is important and it's affecting every area of our lives. Then secondly, our laws and our courts, they are not even doing well. There is that our courts need to be active. Active, I mean by interpreting law to have woman face. We interpret law to women. What I mean is, like in Lagos State now, an average landlord don't want to give its house to any tenant that will give him a problem. In the event of trying to maybe a victim, they can drag the case with you for 3, 4, 5 years. He will not pay, and he will still be in court. Secondly, our law should be amended to put in place that issue of discrimination. It should not be allowed. Then another issue is there's no record. We don't have data. If you have record, a tenant that misbehaves in one house, another client will find it difficult to get another house because you can easily have his or her track record. All right. Those are the issues. Okay. So I don't think it's because you are a single boy or single lady. You are not. Most of them are far better than even married couples. Married ones. Okay. Thank you, Barrister Ikundayo. Let me quickly ask Mr. Adigba. You are a landlord. Have you had situations where you rented your house to a single lady or a single guy, and they turned it into a flex room? And how often does that happen?
No, well, I've not had that experience, but let me quickly speak to what my colleague also said, which is the fact that we need laws to address this issue. We already have laws. The Nigerian Constitution is very clear. You cannot discriminate against people because of their gender. It is there in the Constitution, okay? I think the problem here is that we don't address issues. We don't seek for legal redress when our rights are violated. Now, I didn't, what's that? Sorry, is it your colleague in the studio there? My colleague in the studio, all right, who is joining us, who has this association, all right, that helps to protect and enhance the activities of the singles. Yes. I don't know whether you have considered for a moment in filing a lawsuit against a member of your group who has been discriminated against because it's a woman or a single lady or a single mother. I think this is how progressive societies change things that are not right. You find in the United States here, a woman can walk up to a rental property, and if for whatever reason she feels that The only reason why she's not getting that apartment is because she's been discriminated against. She can fall back and think of the 14th Amendment and all that and go to court and sue. And the landlord will have to pay heavy damages.
Yeah.
So I think we should get to that point where we consider filing a lawsuit, where we have clear evidence that the discrimination was based on gender. Now, the other issue is that you talk about whether I've had a tenant who's done that. Listen, these issues can be addressed by the contract.
Yes.
Right.
The contract that you sign with your landlord and between landlord and tenant. In the United Kingdom, for instance, if you sign a contract to be a single tenant, and then you move in a family, it's a ground for eviction. So if I give my house to a single mother with 2 children, right?
Yeah.
I don't expect to find 15 people living with her in that house.
Okay.
But all these issues are issues you can address through a contract.
Okay. All right, Mr. Adigba, thank you. I'm just going to ask my final question. Now, Olive, in that clip, you were asking a question. I mean, that's right after, and I will keep saying this, after the man said that a woman must live under her husband, right? Must be in her husband's house. And you said something about what if you didn't have a husband? And he's like, you have to, at a certain age. And you mentioned something about this being the reason why people stay in abusive marriages, because why would you want me to remain in a marriage just because society expects that? And he said, you have to stay regardless. Once you have seen the person that you want to marry, you have seen that this is the person that you're getting married to, you have to be submissive to the core. What's your opinion on all of these societal expectations fueling abusive marriages, abusive relationships generally?
The moment you say patriarchy, but that's what it is. We have traditional beliefs that, have dated from years back, systems that we've been trying to break down because these systems have been unkind and unfair to women. These systems that tell you that when your husband cheats and potentially brings in an STD to the house, or your husband is abusive to you, it is your role as a woman. You should go into the bedroom, and go and watch War Room and pray for your husband. These are what the systems tell you, but they hardly ever tell the men these things. They hardly ever tell men that when you have a cheating wife, or when your wife is when she's physically abusive to you, go and pray for her. It's almost like, the roles that haven't been balanced, and it's really unfair. And in the course of this video going viral, I've gotten several women sharing their stories with me in my DM, saying to me how they were abused, how they had to run out of their marriages. One even dropped a comment that at least is a stranger that is saying this to me, that for her it was her mother that was saying that to her. So the systems basically goes back to the structure that tells us that without marriage, you're not complete. And no matter what you've achieved in your life as a woman, if you're not married, if you don't have a man to marry, regardless of the specimen, like the quality of man, whether it's a low quality of man, regardless of who that person is, that there's nothing that you've done with your life. And I think that we should start to speak against that. And I'm really glad our landlord here, our resident landlord of the show, is saying that he's beginning to educate his daughters differently about that. We must start to tell women that everything that you are, the essence of you as a woman, is worth it, is valid. And if you are in an abusive marriage or you're in an abusive relationship, please run and ask questions later. Okay. Save yourself, save your kids, and then you can start to sort out all the fine lines later.
All right. On that note, we're going to wrap this. I really wish that we had like an hour or two to really unpack this unfortunate situation, if I can call it that. But anyways, I want to say a big thank you. First of all, thank you to Olive for sharing that story. I mean, I think that got a lot of, like you said, a lot of women sharing their own experiences. Not many people would have known that people still, say things like that in this generation. So thank you so much, Olive Emodi, lawyer, TV anchor, and our very own at News Central, and of course, the founder of Olive's. Olive, are you trying to say something? It's important
that you recognize that not all landlords are doing that. And I just want to applaud those who are still doing the right thing and those who are speaking up in support of young single women. We want to marry one day, but until then, single lives matter.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Olive, for that. And also, I want to say a big thank you to Barrister Ademola Ekundaye as well, our legal practitioner and notary public, managing partner, Hill City Associates. Thank you so much, Barrister, for joining us as well.
Thank you for having me.
A pleasure. And of course, our landlord, Curtis Adigba, New Jersey, USA. It was a fully rounded conversation. Thank you so much.
Stop paying rent to me.
Yeah.
from New Central.
We'll think about it. We'll think about it. All right. Thank you so much to my guests. And of course, thank you for watching. We're still going to go straight to our creativity series right after the break. So we'll look at creativity from another lens this time around. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying with us on Fafanwa. Now, we're still talking about our creativity series, and today we'll be looking at creativity through the lenses of a visual artist in Accra, Ghana, and I'm talking about none other than Isaac Kone. He's going to be sharing his journey so far, and of course, what he thinks about creativity and the youth harnessing their values as well. Isaac, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, my sister.
All right, Isaac, we're talking about creativity, and I think that the best way to start is I want to get your opinion. How do you believe that creativity can positively impact the lives of young people in Africa?
Yeah, I feel creativity, does not really start with the one who brought it, but it's actually in continuous motion. Like somebody can create something and then another one will pick it and then polish it more. So for me, I feel this is what creativity, means. And then there's a lot of creative people in Africa, especially the kids. Like we are so creative in Africa, and I think we should give the creative people the chance to help in developmental issues. In every nation. We should encourage that.
Right. Now, okay. Isaac,
Personally.
what would you say inspires your craft as a visual artist?
I think the energy among the black kids, and then the low level of education, is what actually motivated my craft in recent times.
Right. And what would you say that will be the potential benefit of incorporating visual art into the society? So basically, what role do you see visual artistry playing in addressing societal issues?
I think, first of all, if visual artists, are being allowed to voice out, in societal issues. I feel, first of all, our society is going to be very beautiful. We're going to have proper development. Our walls are going to look so good. It will be properly shaped, because art and creativity and arranging and ordering, they are all the same thing. They are in the same box. So if we are allowed, to take part in social issues in communities, in countries, everywhere is going to be beautiful.
All right. Isaac, very quickly, and I think this will be my final question, but what advice would you give to a budding youth who wants to harness their talents and make the most of what they can offer, especially in the era of social media where, you can easily sell yourself out there? What is that advice you give them?
Yeah, what I'll say is every young guy, every youth, or even a practicing artist who is already doing or yet to do, should open their minds for collaborations. Creativity and art shouldn't just be a one-man thing. You should involve people. You should get the media to be behind you. Doing proper documentary on things you're doing. Involve your community. Just open your mind, and we should take social media serious, because it's one of the tools, taking us there now. It's easy. You can probably have an online shop, an online gallery, an online museum, to just store your stuffs. And, you never know who jump on it, who sees it, and then, where it takes you. So I would encourage every young or practicing artist now, we should take creativity very serious. We should take creativity very serious and also consider social media and, our communities, we shouldn't take anything for granted.
All right.
I
Very well
feel
said. Very well said. Isaac Kone, visual artist, Accra, Ghana. Thank you so much for your time with us on Fafanwa Africa. Okay, on that note, we're going to be ending the show today, but do also join us in our subsequent episodes, same time next week, as we discuss issues that affect the African youth. Today, we talked about creativity and, of course, gender bias in the housing sector. And do also follow the conversation as well on social media. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear what you think as well. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Blessings Mosugu. It's been Fafanwa Africa.